Hello, this is Brian Foster on Kardec Radio, presenting the program Spiritism and the Spirit World Around Us. Hello, everyone. Tonight, March 11th, 2018, at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, all time zones in between and around the world. I hope you come to our meeting on this Sunday. We are live on Facebook on Kardec Radio. So again, please join Kardec Radio Facebook. There are many people are giving live streaming programs on Kardec Radio, and we can't wait to have you part of our program. As people are live streaming, you can make comments and you can say all sorts of things and ask questions. Again, if I'm talking, you want to ask a question, just write a comment and I'll try to answer that as I go on. I would like to make sure that, again, we are talking about Spiritism. And where did Spiritism start? We started from Allan Kardec, The Spirits book. This is where it all started. If you want to understand Spiritism, I recommend you read this book. Now, I have other books on my site, nwspiritism.com. You can see that on the lower banner here. And I even have many books about Spiritism. I have Spiritism 101, The Third Revelation, which is, you can get that on the Facebook site on our Spiritism and the Spirit World Around Us Facebook site. In the file section, you can get that on PDF for free. So again, please take your time, explore Spiritism. I cannot tell you how it's made me a much more better and calmer, stress-free person. I understand why I'm on Earth, and I understand what I need to do here. I tell you, those two things are extremely important. So again, if you like our videos and our live streams, anything on Kardec Radio, tell your friends to join it. Also, you can join Kardec Radio on your Apple or Android device. There is an app that you can listen to Kardec Radio programs 24 hours a day. My programs are on it. Vanessa's programs on it. Many other people's programs are on that, and you can listen to that. You just have to go to the App Store or the Play Store, look up Kardec, K-A-R-D-E-C, Radio, and you will be able to download that app for free, and you can listen for free all you want. If you would like to read more about Spiritism, you can go to my site, nwspiritism.com. There's a lot of articles on that, and I have books on the right-hand navigation side of ones that I've written. I talk about Spiritism. I talk about reincarnation. I talk about how our planets. I talk about what we're going to talk about tonight on this book, which is The Lower Levels of Education in Heaven, which is Spirits in the Spirit Universe, Book 2, The Spirit World Revealed to an Anglican Vicar. But also, to get this book by Allan Kardec, which all started, which I love, and I reread, and I even have an app that has this book on my phone. You can click on my site, nwspiritism.com. You click on his picture, it'll take you right to the EDI-CEI bookstore, and I think they have this book for a very reasonable price. Of course, you can find his books in other books, and when I'm talking about G. Val Owen, Chico Xavier, Divaldo Franco, Yvonne Pereira, you can find those besides EDI-CEI bookstore site. You can also find those on Amazon.com. So tonight, what are we talking about? This is episode 2 of Education in the Lower Levels of Heaven. Now, I just want to tell you again that when we talk about levels, again, what the spirits told the Reverend G. Val Owen is they're just doing an arbitrary category of levels of heaven. They talk about 1 through 10 being where you're learning everything, where you're learning how to control your thoughts, your mind, and your will. And then after 10 is an extremely big step, which you start actually being able to use what you've learned and be part of a creative force to help guide the evolution of planets, evolution of life, etc. So the overall, also I want to tell you the overall context, what we're talking about, is the spirits that talked to the Reverend G. Val Owen, a marvelous person. He got his all those messages 1910s, 1920s, 30s. He was an Anglican reverend. He getting the skill. His wife first started doing this, and then he started. And he started listening to his mother was the first spirit that talked to him. And we'll actually talk a lot on these lower levels of heaven that his mother talked to him. And it took him like 10 years to decide that this was true, because he even told in the book, he said, look, you don't understand that, people who are, reverends or priests, we are trained to be very careful on what we think happens. And he was very careful. And he was a marvelous person. He exposed a lot. I mean, I cannot tell you how interesting this information is from the book Spirit and from his book Beyond the Veil, which I categorized. I went through and I categorized his information from different spirits and categorized those in different categories, different buckets in 3 books. And I talked about in previous episodes, book 1. Now I'm talking about book 2, and now we're talking about the education on the lower levels of heaven. So, why? First, the question is, why do we have to be educated? Doesn't everybody think that as soon as we die, some people think as soon as we die, we just return to dust. Spiritism tells us that's not true. We are who we are when we pass over from this physical body to the next dimension. But a lot of people think, well, when we die, we become angels. We become part in heaven. We become something special. Well, no. Again, Spiritism tells us, as I said before, we are who we are. We must be educated. We come to earth to be educated. In the spirit world, there's more work, right? Heaven is not bliss forever. Eternal bliss. And as the spirits say in the Spirits book, when they were asked about the Allan Kardec, they said, well, if people's idea of heaven, of doing nothing, that of eternal bliss, that would be truly hell, because you'd not be interested. There's nothing intellectually to move you or to interest you. What are you going to do? Just be idle all the time? I don't know how many of you have been to like beach resorts or whatever. I've been there. I can probably spend a couple hours on the beach and I have to do something. So I'm sure other people can last a lot longer, be comfortable, but I doubt you could be an eternity on a beach chair doing nothing. So that's what heaven is. It's an intellectual excitement that's full of love. Now let's explore it more, because this is exciting. This is telling you why you are on earth, to learn and to learn to improve your character. And in the spirit world, you keep learning. Now, what's some of the important things? Well, in the spirit world, you learn about the spirit world. You learn about the processes. Just like here in high school, you learn about geography, geology, chemistry. And therefore, you have to learn. Now, what's the big difference between here and the spirit world? And as one of the spirits of Reverend G. Valen is, we go on earth, on the physical plane, whatever planet, we go from the objective to the subjective to the sublime. What do they mean by that? And this is very interesting, because this is really the truism of everything. On earth, it's objective, meaning my thoughts, what I feel, doesn't necessarily change my environment. I see that wall, it's still a wall. I hit my head, this head is solid. I feel it's solid. That's my impression. In the spirit world, thought is action. So a high spirit is not only a creature full of immense love and caring, but possesses power to create via their will, the ability to craft new solar systems and life, command to move planets and stars. When Jesus said faith can move mountains, he was speaking literally, not in our physical world on earth. He was actually speaking literally in the spirit world. Now, not that spirits temporarily inhabiting their dense physical bodies have that talent on earth at the present time. The skill to conjure, to rearrange the ether, universal fluid as we call it in Spiritism, around you to become solid and living objects is reserved for those who have climbed a steep ladder of learning. Self-discipline, dedication, love, fraternity, honesty, coolness under fire, intelligence, and knowledge are all prerequisites. The key is to why there is suffering on earth is clear and reasonable. Once you obtain the omnipresent control a high spirit has to maintain, no one in their right mind would place a nuclear device in the hands of a child. On the contrary, rigorous training is demanded before a person is allowed to even approach the control of such a device. In the same way, we on earth are in the midst of a process of removing our imperfections by trials, are being groomed to one day hold unimaginable authority. Numerous incarnations in our frail bodies, paying off our previous mistakes, learning the correct pathway to love and control of our baser instincts, is the road to a level of existence in which the mere thought creates all that we desire. And that's the rub. For our desire, our wishes, our emotions must be pure and always for the good. Our evil intentions must be wiped clean, never to appear. Now, doesn't that make sense? Higher spirits have immense power. Christ was one of the high spirits who set the solar system in order, who set the earth on its path, who commanded the evolutionary progress of our planet. So, the first steps towards training our minds is mentioned in the Reverend Owen's book, Life Beyond the Veil, which is a collection of 4 of his books in the Lowlands of Heaven section, where his mother describes to him the beginnings of learning to create with willpower. Now, the Reverend Eve Allen's mother, who resided in the spirit world while she communicated with her son, told him that she and a group came into a large open-air pavilion, and there was a tablet on the platform in the center. And a spirit demonstrated the primary function of the edifice to the group. He told them to stand around the circular edges of the chamber while he ascended to the top and to watch what will occur. And then a group of acolyte spirits looked up and they saw. This is what she told. This is the quote. Presently, the place took on a different aspect. The air seemed to be changing in color and intensity. And we looked about us. We saw the landscape had disappeared. And between the pillars, there stretched what appeared to be gossamer threads in the forms of curtains. They were of various tints, all interwoven. And as we looked around, they seemed to separate into their own colors and then to take on more definite forms. This continued until we found ourselves standing in a glade with a circular belt of trees gently waving in the breeze. Then the birds began to sing, and we saw their bright plumage, and as they flew from one tree to another, gradually we saw the distance deepen between the trees and could see far off into a beautiful forest. The dome was also gone, and the sky was above us, except where the trees stretched aloft like a canopy. So, look, you are given in the books by G. Val Owen a peek into heaven. We're not telling you everything, but they're giving you a peek. This is what is awaiting you. This is why, and they're explaining this. This is exactly how the spirit world works. They're explaining this to cause you to say, look, this is what it's worth working for, striving for, suffering through all what we're doing in the earth, right? In our incarnation, what is our job? Our job, just like we tell our children, your job is to go to school to be a good student. Our job here on earth is to improve ourselves, improve our character, remove blemishes. It's not so much to be intellectual giants. It's to really reform our characters, to remove bad thoughts, bad speech, right? And we have to remove actually bad thoughts because thought is power in the spirit world. And what is happening is what Spiritism is bringing to you is this peek into what you can be. And this is why everything is worth whatever sacrifice we make. Now, in the pavilion, an entire landscape with accompanying fauna was created, not an illusion, because thought is action, but a real forest with real birds. The group heard the voice of the spirit from above telling them to look at the tablet in the middle of the room. And they turned attention away from the spectacular scene and peered upon the tablet. And this is what she said. We could make it out, a little of it first, but at length one of our party, more clever than the rest, said that the signs were really representations of the various elements which went up to make up the vegetable and animal bodies of the spiritual realms. It is difficult to explain the way in which the connection between the two was apparent to us. But once pointed out, it became quite clear that this was so. Now our guide joined us once more and explained the use of the building. It seems that before the students are able to progress much in the science of creation, as studied in this region, they have to get a thorough knowledge of the fundamental elements with which they have to deal. This is, of course, quite natural. The building is one of the first where they come to study, and the table or dial is a kind of register of these elements on which the student above in the chamber, where the controlling instruments are, can see the combinations of elements he has brought about, and also the proportion of each element entering into the combination. What's he telling us? Well, it's as if a child was playing with the building blocks, and when he or she built objects, the resulting form would be described, the specifications delayed, and the ending composition and the use reported, thereby reinforcing the purpose and composition of the creation in the child's mind. The entire operation is meant to train the mind. As a student focuses on his or her will on the object to be formed, the elements he or she conjured together to create mass for the entities are displayed. A feedback loop is utilized to compare what has been fabricated to the composition of the object. With each experiment, the student can refine their focus and the ratios of what elements are required. Just like we on Earth take children and slowly guide them from grade to grade, instilling ever more complex ideas and processes to one day enable a new generation to play their part in society. The groups of spirits, that's what the goal of this training was, and they were told this. When the student had become proficient, he moved on to another college in this region, where another branch of the science was learned, then had to pass through many more stages of training. The actual use of his knowledge did not fall to his lot until he had passed through many spheres of progress. In the higher of these, he was allowed to accompany some great master or archangel or power, I do not know the exact and correct title, on one of his missions of service in the infinite creation of one Father, and there witnessed the sublime process at work. It was thought that this might be the creation of some new cosmos or system, either material or spiritual. But that is so high above the state in which we are present that we have only a general idea of the duties of those high beings. It is a matter of a few ages of progress from here to there, if our way lies in that direction of that particular system of heavens. So, think about what she told us. Imagine being a part of a team that could create a new cosmos. In fact, as I stated before, we are told in the book On the Way to the Light by the Spirit Emmanuel how our own solar system was originally created by high spirits, of which Christ was one of the group. So hence our planet and the solar system in which we revolve around the sun was fashioned by a group of high spirits, very high spirits. Every one of the spirits who are responsible for the ground we walk on today started out in a building similar to the one described by Jiva Owen's mother. All were fresh pupils at one time, perhaps billions of years ago. All had to endure lifetimes of trials to even be allowed to learn the power of their will. We are all at the first step. Yes, times are hard for many. Tragic episodes will strike us, but all for a purpose. Have faith in the goal ahead and in care and planning that is allotted to each one of us. Now, let's talk about other factors of the lower levels of heaven. So we just talked about how people are being trained to like more of an apprenticeship knowledge, right? How a tool set, how to learn something. But then you're also taught in heaven kind of the society, the philosophy of it. And in heaven, you are taught to rise above national borders, races, and cultures. Because think about it: after we die, if I'm a Frenchman and I die, I'm still proud to be a Frenchman, and I really want to talk to other Frenchmen. If I'm from China, I want to speak Chinese to all my friends. All those type of things. Or if I'm a Buddhist, I want to congregate with Buddhists. Christian with Catholic with other Catholics. So, but as they rise, everybody begins to understand that it's all the same under the spirit. These are just small little, brackets for people to be able to understand and how to improve their life on Earth, right? And as you get higher and higher, you need to have a broader and broader view of not only the Earth, but of all the spirit universe. So, in this vein, we are first told by a group of spirits about a lower level of heaven. And this is what they say. In Sphere 2, the progress of Earth knowledge and the intercommunication of peoples are still felt in their development from generation to generation, from one sphere intervening, but little modifies these, and Earth matters of thought and prejudice still have much influence in that sphere, which influence but gradually is neutralized as the spheres are traversed, meaning as we go higher. And who told us the Jiva one? Well, the spirit Kathleen, the communicator for a group of advanced spirits who spoke to Reverend Jiva Owen. And Spiritism notifies us through the third revelation as codified by Allan Kardec in the 1850s that we are who we are even as we pass from life in the physical to the spirit plane. So hence, if we were the product of the culture of India, and say, for example, we thought that Indians were the most superior group of people on the planet and that our immediate family is of Brahmins, the highest caste, therefore we are the cream of the crop, then we would still have the tendency to believe that as we ascended to a heavenly city above India. Our thoughts, our social constructs, and prejudices are not magically removed as we discard our dense body. The spirit realm doesn't alter our minds through direct control. God absolutely respects our free will and allows us to be as blind and stupid as we so desire. The spirit realm does not attempt to force feed a point of view to us. Instead, they use reason. And this is precisely what the group of spirits who came from the 10th level down to the 2nd level of heaven were trying to accomplish. They came to educate the good souls to rise above their preconceived labels. And habits of thought are difficult to redirect, even for those who desire it. Hence, the spirit realm understands the need to calmly present the case for unity. And this is what they tell us. Even in those well progressed, there linger traces of these things, but not so intensified as to arrest development, nor to mar the brotherhood of the children of God. They become, these differences of earth life, varieties of type, which add to the interest and charm of such as spheres 7 and onward, and have no taint of division, nor belittling of others' opinions and creeds. Those who have proceeded so far in the light have by the light learned to read the lessons written in the book of Acts of God. And there is but one book for all, who speak one tongue, and are all one great family of the Father there. Not as in earth life, out of mere passive and constrained toleration, but with hearty cooperation in work and in friendship, one in love. So therefore, the second sphere was not one of discord or hate, but of habit, right? Any place in heaven is not one of discord and hate. They're trying to slowly train some of these lingering habits from the earth sphere. And the spirits from sphere 10 describe the current state of sphere 2. There, the people were gathered into groups as it pleased their choice. Some sought to consort with those of their own race. Other groups were formed of those whom creed was of higher appeal than blood, and even political circles were not absent. And those from groups singly from time to time attend the assembly of other groups, which were there to their mind and part. A Muslim would pay a friendly visit to a group of international socialists, or an imperialist would attach himself to those who worship God according to the Christian faith. Much diversity was there in the grouping of the people, and much interchanging in the composition of the groups. But for the most part, they remained and continued in what faith they had been, and of what political party and what blood. So, doesn't this sound normal, right? This is the great revelation of Spiritism. Heaven is accessible by everyone, and all that matters is love and kindness in one's heart. Each soul was drawn quite naturally to their own kind, and was considerate and respectful of others. But they just felt more comfortable with similar people. Therefore, to ascend higher, they must learn to feel the same sense of brotherhood to all souls, not just that intimate feeling to a select few. Therefore, all high spirits told the populace in sphere 2 that they would come together and hear the same message. The spirits from the 10th level stood upon a ledge of rock on the high cliff. So the multitude gathered on the rolling hills below could listen to their message of unity. Here's what they were told. Down on the plane of the earth there dwelt one family, which had been divided into many sections. And seeing the evils of such division, there were many who would confederate them once again. Even in this sphere was to be seen that same stubbornness of pride, which said, my race, my creed are more to the Father's mind than those of others. It was for the reason that one must be done away, there, before advance could be free and unimpeded, that we brought them all together as one family to deliver the message we had from the one Father through the only Christ. At this there was some uneasiness about them, but no word was said amiss, for when they saw our brightness was of luster beyond their own, they gave us heed, knowing that once we thought as they thought now, and that only by the releasing of some of our opinions and the remodeling of others have we come to be a brighter of form and countenance than they. So they gave our speaker heed. So it is as if high school students were given a lecture by a group of college students on how to survive and prosper in a university. They would instantly recognize the maturity of the college students and would seek to learn from accumulated wisdom and experience. Once we leave this life, our education does not end. It is only the beginning of eternal learning and betterment. Imagine immortality, exploring new ideas, vistas, planets, cultures, and universes. The higher ones ascend, the wider the range of discovery is open to you. So again, I want to remind everyone, you can join us on Kardec Radio on this Facebook page, or listen to us in Kardec Radio on the app that you can get on your iPhone or Android device, and you listen to us 24 hours a day. Just put in Kardec Radio, 2 words, and you can get our app. There, and get some water. Now, let's have another aspect. So when we talk about the spirit world, and I talk about everything as thought is action, thought also is how high spirits fashioned the atmosphere, the environment, the lakes, the mountains, everything on the spheres of heaven. And I know a lot of people will say, well, and you see this and read this, heaven is whatever, it's your mind creates heaven. And as when you die, you create your own heaven. And there's a lot of truth in that. But what the law of affinity does is it joins us together. So like attracts like-minded people live with like-minded people. And therefore the different levels of heaven, the different stages of heaven, tend to gather people who think alike, and therefore it reinforces what people see, the colonies, the towns, the cities, the buildings, and therefore you become part of that whole sense, that whole vision of what heaven is when you are with a certain group of people that think like you do. Therefore, you reinforce that atmosphere within heaven. So again, this is all in this book, Spirits in the Spirit Universe. You can find this on Amazon. You can also go to my, it's on Kindle and in paperback. You can also do my website, nwspiritism.com. I have all my books on the right-hand side. So let's talk about creating a college city in the 4th level of heaven. And all this does is it just exposes more of how the marvelous, amazing life that is waiting for us after our physical life. So there was a colony in the 4th level of heaven. It had grown and now was ready to take on more responsibilities. The spirit realm decided to make it a hub of newly arriving souls from inferior levels so they could learn how to thrive on stage 4 and continue to ascend. The original building and area called the Glade that held services and civil functions would be transformed into a college. The college was planned to be more than what a college is on Earth. It was also planned to be a place of transition. Souls who have trekked the difficult path up from the lower zone would be able to rest and recuperate by preparing themselves for the next step. Arnell told the Reverend Ziva Owen about the college and its role in conditioning spirits to their new environment. This is what he said. One was to condition the newcomers to the more advanced and refined atmosphere of that district. This was necessary in order that they might feel no discomfort to distract from their studies. There was a large estate, there was no central building, but little nooks and arbors and some small dwelling places where they might rest and find leisure for meditation or talk as they should list. James and other helpers went among them, but not very often, and then they spoke with any they should chance to meet. But a set of training there was none. The people rested and did as they had a mind to do. So again, remember, what are we being told? Nothing is thrust upon the unwary or unwilling. All is told in Ecclesiastes 3:1. To everything there is a reason and a time to every purpose under the heaven. No one is hurried, and when they are ready, a new door is opened. As part of the initiation progress, there's also a department to teach languages. Language beyond dialects, how to speak in pictures, mind to mind, how to use your native language and the past languages you have learned from previous lives to communicate with others, and to combine methods to achieve accurate translation of thought. Next, Arnell describes the Department of Art and Science. Another department was that of the spheres of the science of the spheres. Here was taught with precision what they had come at in the rough during their progress and through the spheres below. The special constitution of each sphere was explained to them, and also the meaning of those experiences which they had passed through on the way. This done, the sphere was explained in all its parts, and the power inherent in their present estate spiritually were also explained. You are wondering whether sphere 5 was dealt with here. No, my son, of that more hereafter. The realms in advance of the fourth were but glimpsed, no more than that. Other departments were those of music, color, creative science, and what would you entitle social economics? But these were elementary merely. So isn't that interesting? Social economics, what does that mean? I don't know. You in these books, not only by Reverend G. Bowen, but all the great books, Sacrograph of Chico Xavier and Divaldo Franco, there's these sentences, and they give you little hints and little openings, and it's just, it's like trying to look at heaven through a keyhole, and it's very interesting. So what do they mean by social economics? I guess, at a place where you create what you want out of your mind, how does that work? We will see. Continue on the quote. It was here they really began to understand what lay ahead of them in these ways of learning. They were not initiated to the dynamics of these because they were not competent to understand them in their present degree of progress. So, as the soul progresses, they acquire more attributes, more capabilities, more tools at their disposal, not physical devices, but an interior expansion, pathways in their spirit mind which weren't open before. Access to the continual and infinite data flow of the spirit universe. Not complete access, but a taste. For each level is more revealed. And Jesus told this in Luke 14:28. And to whomever so much is given, of him much shall be required. And to whom they commit much, of him they will ask the more. And this sentiment is strengthened by what Andre Luis's mother told him. Andre had newly arrived on a low sphere of heaven. And this is in the sequence of books in No Solar. And in this conversation was in the book No Solar. Of course, Chico Xavier wrote, Andre Luis, the spirit, wrote a whole series of books, which I recommend to everyone. They're great. So Andre Luis's mother resided on a higher level of heaven than Andre Luis. Andre Luis's mother came to see him. And this is, let me quote from a passage in the books. This is Andre Luis. He says, "Oh, mother," I exclaimed, "how marvelous the sphere where you live must be. What sublime spiritual thoughts. What bliss." And she smiled and explained, "Higher spheres, my son, always require more work and greater self-denial, my son. Don't imagine that your mother spends all her time in visions removed from her rightful duties. Now, I don't mean for my words to convey any tone of sadness about my situation. Rather, I want them to reveal how necessary responsibility is. Since I returned from Earth, I've been working intensely for our spiritual renewal. Many spirits remain bound to their Earth homes after they discarnate, claiming they care about their loved ones too much to leave them behind. But here I have been taught that in order to be beneficial, true love must work nonstop. So since my arrival, I've been trying hard to win the right to help those we love so much." So what is she saying? And again, look at how she's saying it's the same from Andre Luis and Chico Xavier in Portuguese as the spirits were telling the Reverend G. Bowen 30 years before in the early 1900s versus the 1940s or 50s, and when the No Solar books came out in English. The Spiritism ties all this information from spirits together. So hence, like on Earth, the higher you go in an organization, the more responsibility you are given. The great exception is that the higher one rises in the spirit realm, the more humble and dedicated he or she is toward helping others. So, how are they going to create this college? Well, this is a really interesting part because it exposes how the earth is the heaven is a logical construct. That's why it's subjective. The college and surrounding parkland were planned to be an extensive facility. It would need a larger field than what had been contained the original building and land. On Earth, the only solution would have been to build upwards or to acquire adjacent parcels of land and tear down whatever was previously built there. In the spirit realm, this wasn't necessary. The land itself could be expanded. Since everything was created by thought, by force of will, it would take a subsequent show of willpower to inflate what was already in existence. It would take a group of spirits to apply their minds to the task at hand. Arnell, the spirit Arnell, describes how this was performed. This is what he said. When they were all assembled, they entered into communion of purpose and then directed their joint powers upon that part of the boundary which was to the left of the house of James. Slowly, they shifted their stream of flowing power along the lines of trees and cottages. They went round the three sides of the open space. When they had finished with many pauses, for it was not done in one operation, the glade had enlarged its boundaries so that it was some 3 times in area what it was before. Think about that. They took something physical and expanded it and just moved everything else out. You can't do that on Earth. So only in our most fertile imagination could this have occurred. Yet it did, and it did because the world in which we are from is not dense physical matter, but malleable, universal fluid, which can be transformed into anything, which can be constructed by the mind. In actuality, we live in a logical universe which has been wholly built by thought, originated by the spark of an idea by God. This multidimensional and multi-universe is where we live and where we were fashioned and where we are now being trained to use our minds to create. The entire earth, the human race, was constructed for this purpose, to enable the collection of spirits surrounding the earth to comprehend the realm in which we live and to become disciplined enough to become productive within its boundaries. The combined willpower didn't only enlarge the area, they landscaped and built upon it. This is what the spirit Arnell said. This enclosure was carpeted with greens, and then a colonnade was made on either side at right angles to the house. At the other end of the glade and opposite the house was there an arch of noble proportions erected, and 2 towers, one on either side of it. Beyond this arch was made a broad way out into the open. It descended from the arch and went through parklands which stretched far and wide until they blended into those estates which were established in departments of training, which I have told you, like the departments of social, economics, etc. So these structures were all created by spirits. Spirits from different levels took part in the construction. Before the foundations were put into place by thought, a model was created whereby the members of the crew could ensure their ideas and formulations were all in accordance. In the glade, a new house for the new leader of the city was constructed. It was more than a living quarters, also a place of business. And this large edifice similarly required a model before its construction. But this model was not dematerialized afterwards. Instead, it was bled of color to appear to be almost white alabaster stone. This they placed outside the house in the gardens. And Arnell stated this model is intricately connected to the house. Now, this is what he said. If any visitor came by that way, or if any of those whose normal business was in those parts, would know what was going forward within the house, the attendants of the glade could look within that shrine, and they could know all they desired to know. So this is they're looking at this model, right? This saved much expenditure of time and labor, for the house is very large and had many departments within. Also, beyond out in the gardens and land encircling it, here in the shrine, one could read all the business proceedings at any given moment in the whole of that house and its environs. So let me stop there for a second. There's a model. And it knows everything that's going on in the house and in the environs, right? All around it. So this is what heaven is. This is what the universe is. It's all data and connected. They somehow connected everything that was happening around them, and they put it in this model so you could see what was going on. So I'll continue on the quote. And it was a shrine because whenever people felt the need of some little extra strength to do what task was theirs at any time, they would go there and, reclining in the glade or standing near the model, they would fall to meditation. Then they would be aware of the great powers within the house itself and of their communion with their ruler and his officers. This help was gained without their encroachment upon the time of their good leaders. They went into the glade as young people go into a church for silence and aspiration, and this was to them their altar, both of offering and of refreshment. So the original model of the house was turned into a living notification board and a fountain of sustenance. It is as if before you proceeded to a large office building with dozens of floors containing many departments, various meeting rooms, and simultaneous projects, you could stop by a stone representation of that building and peer into the detailed activity. If you desire, you could locate the person with whom you wish to speak to and determine what that person was working on at that precise moment. And if you needed it, you could gain a little strength and resolve before you entered. Amazing. The intricacies of the spirit realm are vast and varied. Yet we have been given the merest glimpse of what lies beyond, while we have been told of colleges and classes exactly what is different and unique about each sphere, what are its natural laws, and how our spirits change to be able to reside in each sphere are just some of the many mysteries still behind the veil. What we have been told is enough to excite our imagination, to spur us on, to learn more about the spirit world so we can determine the best course to follow to gain entry into a land where everything is possible. And this I cannot emphasize enough. In the spirit world, our home, where we are immortal spirits, we come to earth. We start out as primitive spirits in a primitive planet. We come to the planet of atonement where we are now. Why are we on the planet of atonement? To civilize ourselves, to make ourselves so we can control our thoughts, our minds. We can control what we say, we can control what we think. Why do we have to learn that? Why do we have to get rid of hate and envy and jealousy? I've just described it, right? Because in this world that you're being trained for, you're going to have immense power. Imagine someone as weak and primitive as me. If I got mad, what could I do if I had that power, right? I could wipe out a building because I didn't like anybody in that building. I can't be allowed to wield that power. Of course not. I need training. Would you want a pilot in your airplane and say, oh, he just read a book. He's fine. No, the pilot goes through simulation after simulation. That's why we're on Earth. He goes through simulation. The pilot goes through simulation. This engine goes out, or the wing, the aileron doesn't function, or something happens, right? There's some sort of alarm. How does he react to each circumstance? That's why we're on Earth. How do we react to each circumstance? How can we control our mind? How can we remain calm in every circumstance that you can imagine? That's why you're going through these trials. This is why you say, oh, why me? Why do I have to do this? Why did that person do that to me? Well, I talk about this in my book, The Problem is the Solution, is because every problem we have is just another course. We just go through course after course, learning and learning. And really learning, as I said before, is we're learning how to control ourselves and how to remove these primitive emotions and instill more civilized emotions. So what's the purpose then? What is the purpose of education on Earth? Let me just summarize on heavens, The lower levels of heavens are meant as a place to reorient the newly passed to the spirit realm, to educate and socialize those who have risen out of the lower zone, and to solve some basic character failings so as the spirit may be ready to ascend even higher. Now, the lower zone, which is that place around Earth, starts at the beginning of the Earth, goes up to the lower levels of heaven, right, is where people are when they're not yet allowed into heaven. And as people said, the door to heaven is narrow, right? You, as Jesus said, you have to come and be humble, right? Be humble and be willing to learn, and come as a little child. So that's, you'll see in writings by, the series by Henri Louise, or some of these marvelous books by Yvonne Pierre, like the Memoirs of a Suicide. The people in the lower zone are like a lot of people here on Earth. They're prideful. They're saying, you're not going to tell me what to do. And I understand that. I still think that, right? You're not going to tell me what to do. But if when you come up against what the whole world of heaven is, it is what it is. And either you can rise in there, right? You can rise in there and advance according to your merit, right? There's no such thing as being born or whatever. And everyone, as we say, on Earth, we say people are created equal. Well, we know that's not true, right? They're given equal rights. But in the spirit world, all spirits will become pure. All spirits have the capability to do whatever they need to do, to be trained, to be geniuses, whatever, right? It depends on how you want to do it yourself. And so, as with elementary schools, where students learn to work together and are exposed to the rudimentary rules of society, so functions the initial stages of heaven. In a place where the curtains are first drawn back from the mysteries of the spirit realm, where the full meaning of thought is action is revealed. And this is the great revolutionary vision that Spiritism wants to expose to you. We are immortal souls, but the most interesting thing is that when we are in heaven, thought is action. We create what we have. Now, other people have said that you create, but here, in other visions, Spiritism is the doctrine, but in religions, they give you little hints of heaven, Buddhism, so on and so forth, but Spiritism really tells you what you're starting to give you hints of what to expect. It's like explaining college to an elementary school. You're told this. I mean, and when I'm saying these things, my interpretation could be somewhat off because I have no memory of being there, but it must be wonderful to think and act with your mind, right? And of course, in the books by Chico Xavier, they have volitation, right? So when you think you want to go somewhere, you're there, right? Almost immediately. Again, that is action. That's thought in action. There's no such thing as the speed limit of the speed of light in the worlds of heaven, in the other world, in the spirit universe, spirit universes. It's all that. It's all construct. We are what we want to be. And the lower levels of heaven are grand and beautiful to those who have never ventured higher before. They are met with a world of harmony and love, an atmosphere that is first alien to many. And when I say of harmony and love, there are many instances within people's near-death experiences when they go into, there's some near-death experiences go down, some go up, some go both places. But when they go into some level of heaven, they just feel, right? They feel this immense love, this overall, warm ocean water of just surrounding you of love. And in fact, in some near-death experiences, I have read where the high spirit says, "Well, no, don't hug that person, or don't hug them, because then you'll feel so much more love that you won't even want to go back, right? You won't want to return back to your physical life, and you should go back because you have more to learn." Again, that's what another said in NDEs that people will have. They'll have your final review, your life review, and they'll look at it and say, "Well, I think you have more to learn. You're going back." And of course, they revive and they're back on Earth in their physical body. This is why we're here. And so, even though, with that feeling of love and fitting to a culture of mutual support and collective warmth is a new process for those who have traveled to physical life or life amongst the cruel and sarcastic creatures below in the lower zone. Even though the souls gathered in these levels are good and well-meaning, the habits of survival and self-defense in a different world are hard to break. So the lower level heavens, through education and socialization, the old ways of culture are broken down and discarded, replaced with examples of higher spirits helping others learn and interact. Real and important knowledge is imparted. The building blocks of all the subsequent education is established together with basic manners of thinking and behaving towards others and oneself, all serving to provide a solid foundation to build upon and allow each soul to climb up the ladder of spiritualization and intellectual growth. No required assistance is withheld. The teachers, the guides, and administrators are all on the lookout for opportunities for improvement, whether by lectures, courses, colleges, or assigned tasks and missions. Every method of supporting personal growth is utilized, all within an atmosphere of love. And again, I want to emphasize this. When you become a person good enough to be in heaven, you're up into the, one of the lower levels of heaven. No one is forcing you to say, you go to that college, you have to learn this, and I'm going to give you a grade. No, you do that if you want. If you want to park yourself in the lower zones, and of course we've heard from Jiva Owen and also on the books by Chico Xavier, whatever. And Devaldo Franco, some people have been in the lower zone or the dark abyss for over 10,000 years. So they're not forced to learn, not forced to become better. And in heaven's the same. You can park yourself wherever you want to park yourself and stay there. But what happens is that you are continually shown what you can achieve. They put the book on the table and say, look, this book is very interesting. And this is what you can see. And they'll have higher spirits come and they'll give lectures and they'll tell you about their experiences. Because the other thing I want to make sure is going to heaven is like, oh no, I got to go to class every day, right? I have to go to class. I have to go learn. And throughout the books by Reverend G. Val, and of course, again in here, which I have a lot of stories, Spirits in the Spirit Universe, book 2 of Spiritism. You don't just go to class. You go on missions with other spirits. You come down to earth. You help other people. You are always working. It's field trip after field trip, missions of love. Some people go to missions for their assignments for their own family, to help their own family, to help other people. It's like the best thing you could do intellectually. And you're not assigned a job. You decide what you want. Again, in the book No Solar, they had this woman who was with Andre Luis. They were sitting there talking to, I think, I forgot who they were talking to, but one of the guys in No Solar, that was assigning jobs for people. And Andre Luis wanted a job as soon as possible. He really wanted, because he's just that personality type. And this one woman, she said, they told her, okay, I want to go see my family. He said, okay, well, to see your family, you have to be doing something. You have to earn that right. He goes, I've given you all sorts of jobs, but you don't like them. But no, I didn't like those jobs. I couldn't work here and I couldn't work there. And it ended up where she had been in the spirit world and at No Solar, in that level of heaven, for like 3 years, but she's worked for, I think, a grand total of about 6 weeks. So it just shows you, no one forces you to do anything. But again, you have to earn your credits. Right now in No Solar, it's different for other heavenly cities. But if you want more responsibility and you want more power and you want more freedom, just like any kid going to school, do well in school, your parents will let you do more and more, right? Same thing in heaven. And you can keep going up and up. So that is the interesting thing about heaven, is it's all up to us. It's all about merit. Now, the other, I think, factor I want to show is the people that are teaching you, the people you're working with, are humble and nice. Again, over and over, not only in G. Val Owen's book, all the books with Chico Xavier, a high spirit, when they meet a lower spirit, does their best not to show their superiority, not to say, hey, I'm better than you, you should look up to me. They're always try to be humble and cooperative. In the book, Memoirs of a Suicide, there's one of the people who had committed suicide and went to this kind of hospital of suicides, wanted to go back to earth. And Camilo Branco, wrote about this, and he said he girded himself up to talk to a typical bureaucrat, right? And he got in there and he talked to the director of the ward of the hospital, and he was surprised. He said, "My brother, how can I help you?" I sincerely, and he was just so nice and so loving, because he prepared himself on earth as a earthly bureaucrat, right? Of someone who would just show and lord power over them. That's not the way it is. So when you talk with other spirits and interact with all these people, these great spirits, it's done with love and kind and atmosphere. This is how we need to learn to act with people. And I can be one of the worst, right? I can try to sometimes I give people orders. It's just kind of my nature. And I've had to fight that. And I have to learn to, explain things, help them reach that conclusion. Begin conversations with listening, not ordering, not judging. These are all things we have to learn. And people will see this as examples in heaven. So I just want to thank everyone that have been a part of my talk. I hope this has been helpful. I am what I do is I will load this up. I take this and I will put this on my YouTube channel. Again, you can get to my YouTube channel on nwspiritism.com. You can click on it. It's the YouTube channel is called NW Spiritism. You can find it. Please subscribe if you'd like to. I'm also creating smaller videos. I just created one of those, Why Angels Are Bright, like a 4-minute video. I'm working on one of the levels of planets, where there will be shorter videos, and I'll explain different aspects of Spiritism. Besides also loading any of these type of videos, I'll load that up that you can see anytime. Again, you can also hear these on Kardec Radio. Please tell your friends to join Kardec Radio Facebook page and load Kardec Radio on your iPhone. I have mine on my iPhone or Android device. Oh, and Sol and Jose, thank you. Hope you've enjoyed tonight. And I want to end this with saying, bless all of you. I would love to have anyone who would like to come to our Spiritist site on Bainbridge Island. We are close to Seattle, Washington on the Pacific coast. And I just want to say thank you again for everyone, and please join us.
I would like to thank everyone for listening to our program on Kardec Radio, and to point you in the direction to find more information about the spirit world around us. You can visit my blog at www.nwspiritism.com. Again, that is www.nw as in Northwest Spiritism.com. And if you are ever in the Northwest, I certainly would welcome to have you come to our meeting on Bainbridge Island near Seattle in the state of Washington. Many blessings to all of you, and please continue to explore Spiritism and the spirit world around us.
And Jose, yes, I would love to have you up here if you could come and visit. That would be wonderful.